Everybody, how's it going? So, this is part 2 of my German Southside ancestors, okay? So, we basically ended off part 1, basically going in depth now on the destiny and the livelihood of Charlie and Minnie Riebel, my second great-grandparents. That would be my great-great-grandparents. So, Charlie and Minnie Riebel, to be specific, are the grandparents of my grandfather, Mooch Joyce, which many in some Southside, you know Mooch. Okay, my grandfather Mooch's grandparents, my great-great-grandparents, are the ones that owned and operated Riebel's Saloon, or Riebel's Bar, on the corner of 27th and Jane in Southside, which is currently Chipka's 1, okay? So, that neighborhood and that area, like I elaborated in part 1, that was owned and operated, or not owned, operated, but there was many properties owned and being occupied by my German ancestors since the 1840s. Or, yeah, before the Civil War, okay? So, Charlie and Minnie, they basically were born and raised and lived in the saloon business, like I already said in part 1. Now, Charlie and his mother are basically having a rivalry because Charlie is trying to make his claim in the 1890s. At this time, he's in his 20s, okay? And he wants to basically get his foot into the family business. He wants to basically independently own and operate his own saloon in Southside. Now, his mother, Elizabeth Riebel, the daughter of Henry Christian, the Civil War veteran. Now, Charlie is basically at basically a rivalry, like I said, with his mother. Now, his mother is owning and operating the saloon, Riebel's Saloon, down in Southside. Basically, I would assume across the street from currently Chipka's 1 on South 27th and Jane. Now, the property across the street, the corner South 27th and Jane, that is owned by the Funks, okay? August Funk, okay? They, the Funks, then sell the property in the early 1900s to Elizabeth Riebel, okay? Now, here's where it's going to get a little crazy. August Funk is a comrade of Elizabeth Riebel's father, Henry Christian, in the 74th Pennsylvania. So as you can see with the neighborhood, like it is today, or like it was, but somewhat today, people know each other. And people have known each other's parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles for decades. Okay? Like my dad said about the Southside neighborhood, you couldn't go down Jane Street or Sarah Street or 27th or whatever street without somebody knowing you and knowing your parents and knowing your grandparents. I mean, that's just how the neighborhood was for decades, okay, going all the way back into the 1800s. But regardless, August Funk, who owned and occupied the corner of 27th and Jane, basically 48 to 50 South 27th and Jane, basically the corner, basically 27th Street, he then sells that property to my third great-grandmother, Elizabeth Riebel. That's the bar front, okay? That is the bar. So she then has a bigger, better location to rent out the upstairs to occupants, to renters. But the bottom of the bar, that is the moneymaker. That is the money magnet. But here's the thing. The Riebels aren't the only one, or that bar is not the only property that they own and operate down in Southside on the flats during that time. In the early 1900s, they have many different properties around Southside. Okay, they have many different houses, many different other saloons. The Lipperts also have claimed some properties and some saloons down in Southside still in the early 1900s, okay? So these people have footholds and have claims to many different things. It's kind of like a German empire, if you would think about it, to be blunt about it. It's literally a German empire. These people are trying to claim all this stuff. But Charlie Riebel, my great-great-grandfather, in his 20s, is young and ambitious. He's running and operating this bar called Riebel's. His mother is the one that owns the property. She's the one that owns the bar. Elizabeth Riebel owns the bar. But Charlie and his wife, Minnie, They're the ones doing all the dirty work. They're the ones doing all the hard work. And their kids, Aunt Helen, my great-grandmother Marie, my great-uncle Carl, and my great-aunt Henrietta, and then my great-aunt Annabelle, who was born way later. Okay? Now, the older kids, Helen, Marie, and Carl. Marie is my great-grandmother Marie Joyce, Marie Rebel Joyce. When the kids get older, when they're like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're working too for free. They're basically servants. Now, they're working in the bar business too. They're working behind the bar. They're serving. They're cleaning. They're helping their parents, which, hey, back in that day, there was no child labor laws, especially when they're the children of the owners. They're basically servants, okay? And so Charlie and Minnie essentially are doing all the dirty work and the hard work. Now, Elizabeth, not saying that she's lazy, but she owns the bar. So she feels that, hey, I'm the owner. I'm the owner of this establishment, so basically I call the shots. Now, Charlie and Minnie, they're pretty mad about this because they're like, whoa, we're doing all the dirty work. We're doing all the hard work. We're running this place, basically, and you're just sitting on a throne getting all the profit and getting all the money. Not to say that Charlie's ungrateful because he loves his mother. He respects his mother, but he just doesn't like that his mother is not cutting him any of the big portions of the bar business, of the property or of the profits. Okay? But regardless, so going into the 1910s, okay, we're creeping onto World War I. Now, Rebel's Saloon and Rebel's Bar down in Southside is one of the more popular locations in saloons and bars in Southside at the time. And Charlie is starting to establish his seniority and establish his basically status as a prominent member of the Southside community. And being a bar operator and not a bar owner, but just a basically prominent part of this business, he's learning how to make deals, and he's making good relationships and good basically good connections, you know what I mean, financially, diplomatically around Pittsburgh. And so by the time World War I comes, Charlie's already well known around the community, especially around Southside. Charlie is a very prominent, prestigious, famous person around the Southside community. The Rebel name is very well known. And so at this time, there's a lot of German prejudice around the country. Which you would think that this would affect the bar business. You would think this would affect Rebels, but it doesn't. Because the loyal people of Southside, no matter if they're Polish, Slovakian, Serbian, Russian, because during the 1900s, 10s, and 20s, that's when the Eastern Bloc started to come over predominantly to Southside, and even some Italians, but mostly the Eastern Bloc. Many Ians might have Eastern European ancestors. Well, these people didn't discriminate against the Rebels being German. Even though the United States was at war with Germany in the 1900s or 1910s from 1917 to 1918, it didn't matter because the Rebels were already solidified and they were already popular in the Southside community. So it wasn't a big deal. Now here's what happens in 1916. Charlie's mother, Elizabeth Rebel, she passes away. Well, guess what happens? Charlie is granted ownership of the liquor license and the property. He's inherited this, okay? So now Charlie is finally fulfilling his destiny and his dream of owning and operating his own independent bar. Not to say that he was grateful for his mother's demise. He's not saying that, oh, great. But he's basically finding the positive of it. It's what he wanted. It was his dream his whole life. And by the time he's going on his 40s, he's finally operating his own bar. Okay, now he changes the name to C.H. Rebels. Charles Henry Rebels. Okay, he then owns a amateur Southside baseball team. Okay, because during that time you had baseball teams like bar leagues going around Pittsburgh playing each other. And Charlie is putting ads in the papers. I mean, Charlie's Bar is one of the more popular bars in Southside, like I already said. and he has a great reputation, a great status in the community, until the 1920 Volstead Act. That piece of garbage, prohibitionist piece of legislation kicks in, which the Volstead Act, for many Indians that don't know, in 1920 was the abolition or the banning of the consumption and selling of alcohol in the United States, which was completely, and this is where I'm going to get a little political, bear with me, but this was a complete discriminatory act against Catholic immigrant peoples of America, okay? Predominantly Irish and German Catholic people. Now, the Rebels, being Lutherans and Catholics, they fell into this line because Lutherans are basically diet Catholics. Sorry, that's rude to say, but hey, I'm just going to say it. And so, Lutherans and Catholics being hand in hand in this bar business, which they were. Most Lutherans married Catholics anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. If you look at the grand scheme of things in the United States history. They were being discriminated against this Volstead Act. Now, the Rebels bar is the alcohol is the bread and butter. That's the reason why people come. Now, to be honest, the Rebels don't just sell alcohol. It's not the only thing they sell. They also sell turtle soup, sandwiches, German ethnic foods. So, it's basically like a bar restaurant, essentially, okay? Because when you're drinking, you want to eat at the same time. But the Volstead Act was basically a way for the Protestant elites, okay, the blue bloods, the wasps of society, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. It was a way for them to basically put down the Catholic and Lutheran immigrant families who were in the bar businesses, who depended on alcohol to make money. It was a way to crush them and to suppress their authority and power. Kennedy's in Boston, okay? Think about that. So, Charlie and Minnie are not going to allow this Volstead Act, this ridiculous piece of WASP legislation, to destroy their bar business. So what do? They do what any bootlegger does and anti-prohibitionist does. They sell it under the counter. They sell it under the table. They create a underground illegal industry, basically, or scheme, to basically curb this and go around this and still generate revenue and make money, not only for themselves, but they also want to make money for other people too. They also want to help out other distributors, other people, other businesses, other essentially German and Irish Catholic families that are being discriminated against this Volstead Act. And so, essentially, they ride this wave of illegal alcohol distribution and consumption. And by 1933, the Volstead Act's lifted because they realized with the Italian Catholics, the German Catholics, and the Irish Catholics, they're not standing for this, and they're just going to completely disregard and do whatever they want anyway. So the Volstead Act was a complete failure. Great. And so Charlie and Minnie get around this. They beat the Volstead Act. They own and operate this bar for a couple more years. And then by 1936, Charlie Riebel dies of cancer. And I think he was 62 years old when he died in 1936. And Charlie Riebel, for the conclusion of, let's just say he's like one of the OG Riebels of Southside, to basically conclude his life and to summarize it, he had a very successful life. Okay, a very prominent and successful life. Not only as a bar owner, but also a prominent, amazing member of the Southside community that defended the community against Jones and Laughlin Steel Company by trying to colonize properties around Southside and basically relocate the owners and the renters. Charlie went to court and fought J&L from trying to take many properties around Southside and dislocate and basically upheave members of the community out of their homes and their properties. That was a great thing. And also, Charlie, at the end of the day, he might have broke the Volstead Act. He might have broke the law. But guess what? At the end of the day, by selling alcohol illegally and under the table, he helped many members of the Southside community, which they loved him for it. He was a fantastic person for doing this, but he wanted his the friends and neighbors of his Southside community to benefit from alcohol, because he knew how much alcohol meant to the hardworking people of this country, especially of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Alcohol was a staple. It was a piece of cultural tradition. If you're a German, Irish, Italian, or any other European ethnicity, alcohol is a staple. I mean, it is an essential thing. Okay, to celebrate, to have, to relax, for social reasons. And Charlie and his wife Minnie, they realized that this was an utter piece of garbage legislation and law. So what they did is they wanted to help the members of their community while making money at the same time, of course. But regardless, they were willing to risk their bar, risk their properties, and risk their reputation. They were willing to do it and break the law to help the members of their community and distribute alcohol to them while making a profit at the same time, of course, because it's a business. But regardless, at the end of the day, in conclusion, I'm very proud of my ancestors. I'm very proud of my family, and I could care less what many Ians have to say about, well, they broke the law. The law was ridiculous, okay? Banning alcohol, give me a break. And so, at the end of the day, Charlie was the last blood rebel of the south side of Pittsburgh. And that's where I'm going to conclude. And after his death, Minnie and her daughters couldn't run and operate the bar anymore. And by the late 1930s, before World War II, they had to sell the bar on the corner of South 27th and Jane to another owner. And the Rebel family got out of the bar business. So, the Lippert and Rebel family. So, from the 1870s to the 1930s, in the south side of Pittsburgh, the Germans of the Rebel family and the Lippert family, on my bloodlines, my family tree, were involved in the bar business, in the saloon business. And at the end of the day, that industry and that business is what gave them success, not only socially and economically, but also diplomatically. Okay? And so, at the end of the day, I'm proud of what I am. I'm proud of my ancestors, and I'm proud to be a descendant of those people from the south side of Pittsburgh. And I just wanted to share that because I feel like many of yins could relate to this history. And if you have ancestors that lived in the south side during that time, we have shared history. And your ancestors and my ancestors knew each other. They helped each other. They benefited from each other. And I feel that as a community, as the neighborhood, I'm not a part of that neighborhood. My dad is. But as a descendant of that neighborhood, I just want to share my history because I'm so proud of my ancestors and my lineage. And so I want to thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate it. And I want to say peace out and have a good day.